The highly anticipated pure love drama Queen of Tears is here, giving all the hopeless romantics out there a reason to believe in love again. Starring the dynamic duo with top-tier chemistry, this series promises to leave every viewer deeply moved. It's a love story for the ages, one that you can't help but get lost in.
저는 5년 전에 유학에서 돌아와서 당시 제 아버지가 대표로 계시던 퀸즈 백화점에 인턴으로 들어가게 됐어요. 일종의 언더커버랄까.
The story begins with Haiyin, a fresh-faced employee who's just started at a new company. Like many newcomers, she's completely clueless about how to use the copy machine. Her frustrated attempts at copying documents catch the attention of Baek Hyun-woo, our leading man. Without saying a word, Hyun-woo steps in to help her with the copies. From that moment on, every time Haiyin needs to copy something, Hyun-woo is there, silently assisting. At first, he's just worried she might break the machine, but after a while, he finds himself worrying about her instead. Haiyin isn't exactly winning any points with her colleagues, who all gossip about how terrible she is as an intern. Hyun-woo, with genuine concern, gives her some advice.
어쩌려고 그럽니까? 내가 알바 많이 해봐서 아는데요. 홍인 씨 그러다 곧 잘립니다.
But Haiyin seems unfazed by the idea of getting fired, because, unbeknownst to Hyun-woo, the company actually belongs to her family. Oblivious to her true identity, Hyun-woo confesses how he's been on edge, especially whenever she gets scolded by their boss. Haiyin, sensing something off, asks why he's so anxious after all. He's not the one being reprimanded. Caught off guard by her question, Hyun-woo is left speechless. At that moment, Hyun-woo realizes he needs someone to talk to, someone who understands him. Later, as he's leaving the office, he spots Haiyin standing at the entrance, stranded by the rain. He offers her his umbrella, and before she can say anything, he begins to explain himself.
자꾸 이런 거 없고 그러니까 내가 더 신경 쓰이지.
Hyun-woo tells her that although his family isn't from Seoul, they're well off. He lives in a serviced apartment, fully paid, not rented by the month. He even mentions that he has a decent amount of savings, leaving Haiyin utterly confused about what he's trying to say. Finally, after all this, Hyun-woo gets to the point.
인턴 잘리고 재취업 안 돼도 내가 당신 책임질 수 있다.
It turns out that the well-off Hyun-woo was actually confessing his feelings, but he mistakenly thought Haiyin was just an ordinary worker. All that build-up before the confession was because he was worried that Haiyin might feel pressured by his feelings, considering his family is somewhat prominent back in his hometown.
좋아서 그래요. 그러니까 나 어때요?
That's why he was so cautious with his words. Haiyin, caught off guard by the sudden confession and the misunderstanding, was left completely flustered. Seeing her discomfort, Hyun-woo quickly told her there was no rush to answer. He then insisted she take his umbrella so she wouldn't get wet, and left in the rain himself. What he didn't know was that Haiyin didn't really need the umbrella. She had a private driver. As she was on her way home, she saw Hyun-woo waiting for the bus in the rain, and her heart swelled with joy. Hyun-woo's pure, sincere love had begun to win her over. She followed the bus in her car, silently watching Hyun-woo, falling for him more with every glance. From that day on, the two started dating. Hyun-woo took Haiyin to his hometown, proudly showing her around his family's properties, ending their tour at the village's only supermarket, which, of course, was owned by his family. At Hyun-woo's warm invitation, Haiyin had a 51 popsicle. When she mentioned it was her first time trying one, Hyun-woo was shocked and immediately assumed she came from a poor family, which explained, in his mind, why she always wore t-shirts with holes in them. Haiyin tried to explain that those clothes were actually designer pieces she bought in Europe, but Hyun-woo cut her off before she could finish.
지금도 못 낸다고 입고 온 게 우리 외할머니 웃돌이 같은 거고.
His misunderstanding left Haiyin both amused and exasperated, unsure of how to explain it to him. Suddenly, Hyun-woo got serious, vowing to give Haiyin everything she's never had before. Worried that she might doubt his ability to provide for her, Hyun-woo reassured her that he saves 2 million won every month and that even if she had nothing, or even if her family was in debt, it wouldn't matter, he'd always be by her side. Not long after, Hyun-woo learned the truth about Haeyin's identity. Devastated, he quit his job and disappeared. One day, while sulking at home, Hyun-woo received a text message. When he stepped outside, he was shocked to see Haiyin arriving in a helicopter, coming to find him. After this, the two got married, with Haiyin, the heir to Korea's largest conglomerate, tying the knot with her former colleague. Their wedding was dubbed the wedding of the century. Married life was blissful, and soon, they were expecting their first child. Hyun-woo was overjoyed, eagerly counting down to the baby's due date. When the doctor announced the expected delivery date, both were thrilled. Back home, they started preparing the nursery. Haiyin spared no expense, using only the finest materials, while Hyun-woo carefully placed glowing stars on the ceiling. Everyone assumed their happiness would last forever, but then tragedy struck. Haiyin suffered a miscarriage. After the loss, she immediately cleared out all the baby items from the nursery. Hyun-woo, devastated, confronted her, but her cold response made him believe she didn't care about the baby at all. In reality, Haiyin was deeply heartbroken, unable to accept what had happened. The miscarriage was something she never expected. This unexpected tragedy began to drive a wedge between them, slowly pulling their once loving relationship apart. From that day, Hyun-woo and Haiyin started sleeping in separate rooms, barely speaking to each other. Even at work, they frequently clashed. Haiyin wanted to shut down the underperforming sales counters, but as a legal advisor, Hyun-woo strongly opposed the idea. Their heated argument in front of the entire office made it clear to everyone that their marriage was on the rocks. Soon, rumors about their troubled relationship began to spread like wildfire. Not only did Hyun-woo have to tiptoe around his wife's family at home, but he also had to endure constant demands that made him feel utterly powerless. One day, his brother-in-law publicly asked him to do a task that was clearly outside his job description. When Hyun-woo tried to resist, his mother-in-law immediately scolded him.
서로 지켜야 할 영역이란 게 있으니까.
하라면 하지 뭔 말이 그렇게 많나?
Adding to his frustration, his mother-in-law began pressuring him and Haiyin to have a child as soon as possible. This was a frequent topic of gossip, and she even insisted that the child take Haiyin's last name. Hyun-woo was baffled by this and couldn't help but ask why. His father-in-law's explanation left Hyun-woo speechless.
엄마 성 붙이는 거 혹시 별론가? 호주제도 폐지가 됐고 아빠 성만 따르는 거 난 굉장히 고리타분하다고 생각하는데.
Realizing his complete lack of authority or respect in the household, and with his relationship with Haiyin growing colder by the day, Hyun-woo began to question the need for a child altogether. He hesitantly asked Haiyin if she truly wanted a child, to which she indifferently replied that she would agree if necessary. This cold response, along with his in-laws' harsh demands, left Hyun-woo feeling deeply frustrated. Seeking relief, he turned to a close friend for a drinking session, where he poured out his sorrows. As Hyun-woo rambled on drunkenly, his friend tried to drag him home, but Hyun-woo stubbornly refused, claiming he was too cute when drunk to go back. He even boasted that his cuteness was well known in his village, as it was something he was born with. It wasn't until late at night that Hyun-woo finally stumbled back home. He stood outside Haiyin's bedroom door for a long time, debating whether to go in, but in the end, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Meanwhile, Haiyin was also standing by her door, hesitating. This mutual hesitation only deepened the distance between them. Over time, the mounting stress took a toll on Hyun-woo, causing him to lose his appetite and experience shortness of breath in crowded places. With no other option, Hyun-woo sought help from a therapist. During his session, Hyun-woo confided in the therapist that he lived with his father-in-law, mother-in-law, and grandfather-in-law, along with his wife's aunt, brother-in-law, and their family, all under one roof. Every evening, they had dinner together, followed by mandatory family conversations at 9 p.m., and they spent every holiday together as a large group. In short, Hyun-woo had almost no time to himself for 365 days of the year. Hearing this, the therapist quickly realized that Hyun-woo was in desperate need of a space where he could relax and breathe. Concerned, the therapist asked about his work situation. Hyun-woo, looking defeated, explained that his wife was his boss, her boss was his father-in-law, and his father-in-law's boss was the grandfather. Just seeing any of their names pop up on his phone made his heart race and his hands shake uncontrollably. As much as Hyun-woo resented his in-laws, he resented his wife even more. No matter how poorly her family treated him, she remained indifferent and never stood up for him. The therapist, after hearing all this, couldn't help but think that divorce might be the right choice. She asked why Hyun-woo hadn't left yet.
죽을 수도 있을 것 같아서요.
Hyun-woo explained that his father-in-law despised betrayal and would surely retaliate if anyone tried to leave the family. This bleak and miserable situation filled the therapist with sympathy for Hyun-woo, but all he could do was prescribe him some medication. Despite enduring 3 years of torment in his marriage to Haiyin, Hyun-woo never fully committed to the idea of divorce until this moment. He discovered that before their marriage, Haiyin had written a will stating that if anything were to happen to her, all her cash, stocks, and real estate would be left to the family conglomerate. What pained him even more was realizing that Haiyin never truly wanted a husband. She simply wanted a convenient household servant to register in the family ledger, and Hyun-woo happened to fit the bill perfectly. With his good looks and law degree from Seoul National University, Hyun-woo was the ideal candidate to help craft the perfect love story that everyone would envy. On top of that, he was obedient and easy to control. These words pierced Hyun-woo's heart like needles, and it was at that moment that he quietly resolved to go through with the divorce. Meanwhile, Haiyin received a call from the hospital with concerning news about her health. She decided to visit the hospital and, as she was about to leave, ran into Hyun-woo. Hoping he would accompany her, she asked him to come along, but Hyun-woo, still furious, refused and walked away angrily. Left with no other choice, Haiyin went to the hospital alone. As she looked down at her watch, unfamiliar scenes suddenly flashed before her eyes. When she regained awareness, she found herself sitting in front of the doctor, completely unsure of how she had arrived or how much time had passed, as if she had somehow teleported there. Reflecting on it, she realized that she had been experiencing these strange lapses lately, finding herself in different places with no memory of how she got there. Since she hadn't felt any pain or discomfort, she hadn't taken these symptoms seriously. The doctor's explanation shattered her world. Haiyin had been diagnosed with a rare form of cloud cell tumor, the first recorded case in Korea. Even worse, the tumor was located between her brain's nerve pathways, making surgery nearly impossible. Medications offered little hope, and the medical community had no effective treatment options. Given the tumor's rate of progression, the doctor estimated that Haiyin had no more than 3 months to live. This sudden death sentence left her in a state of shock and disbelief. At the same time, unaware of this devastating news, Hyun-woo had gone straight from work back to his hometown, where he was happily enjoying a meal prepared by his mother. After dinner, he finally confided in his parents about his decision to divorce Haiyin. His announcement left them stunned and speechless. His father urgently tried to talk Hyun-woo out of it, pleading with him to reconsider, but Hyun-woo, with firm resolve, insisted that he had thought it through and that divorce was the only option. Returning home, Hyun-woo took the divorce papers and went to see Haiyin. But before he could even bring up the subject of divorce, Haiyin stunned him with the words, "I'm going to die."
죽는데.
Hyun-woo had been eagerly anticipating an end to his 3 years of suffering through divorce, but his wife's shocking revelation felt like a bucket of cold water, extinguishing his hopes and plunging him into a state of inner turmoil. The firm resolve he had moments ago was shattered by the news of Haeyin's illness. Overwhelmed by conflicting emotions, Hyun-woo quickly shifted his approach, apologizing to Haiyin instead.
그동안 혜인이 너한테 정말 미안한 일이 많았다. 앞으로는 그런 일 없을 거다. 내가 진짜 잘하겠다. 난 그 말을 하려고.
With tears streaming down his face, Hyun-woo sorrowfully lamented the brevity of Haeyin's life, expressing how he couldn't possibly live without her. He then pulled her into a tight embrace, hoping to touch her heart with his words.
사랑한다. 사랑해, 형님.
But instead of being moved, Haiyin coldly responded, "If you can't live without me, then let's die together." Hyun-woo was stunned into silence by her words. Seeing Haiyin speak so casually about dying together, Hyun-woo quickly changed the subject, anxiously asking about her condition. Haiyin explained that she had been diagnosed with a cloud-shaped brain tumor, which was causing intermittent memory loss. The doctor had estimated that she had about 3 months left to live. Hearing this, Hyun-woo couldn't help but feel a secret thrill. If the diagnosis was accurate, he would be free from this torment in just 3 months. To confirm, he urged Haiyin to get a second opinion at the hospital the next day. But in his excitement, Hyun-woo accidentally let his true feelings slip. Realizing his mistake, he quickly covered it up, suggesting that Haiyin was just overly sensitive and that they should both try to forget everything and get some sleep. Haiyin replied that there was no way she could sleep under these circumstances. Hyun-woo, pretending to be sympathetic, remarked that he might also struggle to fall asleep. However, he ended up sleeping soundly and even woke up humming a tune. Mid-hum, he suddenly realized the inappropriateness of his behavior but couldn't help but smile at the thought that in just 3 months, he could part ways with Haiyin forever. Still, aware that it wasn't the time to be happy, Hyun-woo tried to suppress his joy and put on a more somber face. He then went to check on Haiyin, only to find her still lying in bed. He called her name several times, but she didn't respond. Growing concerned, Hyun-woo tried lifting her arm, but Haiyin remained motionless. Alarmed, Hyun-woo leaned in closer to listen for her breath, only to find Haiyin suddenly opening her eyes. Caught off guard, Hyun-woo quickly kissed her and wished her good morning, leaving Haiyin confused and suspicious of his strange behavior, but she didn't dwell on it, and the moment passed. Later, Hyun-woo visited the hospital and confirmed with the doctor that Haeyin's diagnosis was indeed accurate. Only then did he feel a sense of relief. Originally, Hyun-woo had planned to ask a friend to help him with the divorce, but now, he saw no need. All he had to do was wait out the 3 months, and he'd be free from the Hong family. Hyun-woo's sudden change of heart about the divorce puzzled his friend. When asked about it, Hyun-woo revealed that Haiyin had cancer. His friend was shocked and couldn't believe it at first, but after hearing that Hyun-woo had confirmed it with the doctor, he finally accepted it as the truth. Upon learning that Hyun-woo wouldn't inherit anything from Haiyin, not even a single cent, his friend began to strategize. He suggested that Hyun-woo spend the next 3 months making Haiyin believe that he truly loved her. If he treated this period like a training camp and wholeheartedly loved Haiyin, there was a chance she might amend her will before she died. Though the plan was manipulative, Hyun-woo decided to give it a try. Soon after, on their wedding anniversary, Hyun-woo bought Haiyin a large bouquet of flowers. At home, he started closing the emotional gap between them. Normally, they would sit at opposite ends of the dining table, but this time, Hyun-woo took his plate and sat next to Haiyin, even going out of his way to make her a heart-shaped shrimp. During a company meeting, when Haiyin accidentally choked on some water, Hyun-woo immediately panicked, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. But the most dramatic act was yet to come. Haiyin managed a department store, and during its expansion, it encroached on her own mother's land. Now, her mother plans to sue her, demanding that the land be returned. Haiyin explained that the land use was agreed upon during the expansion, and she had obtained her mother's consent at the time. So why was she now going back on her word? Her mother dismissed her with a simple excuse, claiming that her lawyer didn't agree and citing potential future tax issues as the reason for her change of mind. What was even more baffling was that Haiyin's father didn't think his wife was in the wrong. Instead, he urged Haiyin to find a solution to the problem. This was too much for Haiyin to bear. Angry and frustrated, she stood up and confronted her mother. Normally, in situations like this, Hyun-woo would remain silent, but this time, he suddenly stood up and interrupted his mother-in-law. He proceeded to lay out legal procedures, effectively silencing everyone at the table. Then, he took Haiyin's hand and led her away from the dining room. While Hyun-woo's actions had helped Haiyin out of a tough spot, they also made her uneasy. She started to notice something was off, especially given Hyun-woo's recent strange behavior. At the same time, Hyun-woo also found Haiyin's behavior unusual. Despite the doctor's diagnosis of a severe illness, Haiyin seemed to be getting better each day, looking more energetic and healthier. Perplexed, Hyun-woo decided to research her condition online. He spent hours reading various posts and articles until he eventually fell asleep. When Haiyin returned home, she accidentally saw what Hyun-woo had been searching on his computer. In that moment, her doubts about him vanished. Previously, she had suspected that Hyun-woo might be secretly happy about her impending death, which explained his sudden kindness. She even worried that he might have ulterior motives. But now, seeing his genuine concern, she realized she had misunderstood him. Haiyin then confided in Hyun-woo, admitting that when she first learned she only had 3 months to live, she had indeed been devastated. She was torn between whether to continue treatment and worried about whether anyone would mourn her after she was gone. She had wrestled with many thoughts during that time. However, seeing how deeply Hyun-woo cared for her gave her a newfound will to live and the strength to keep fighting.
걱정 마. 내가 당신 봐서라도 절대 쉽게 안 죽을 거니까.
In reality, Hyun-woo desperately wanted Haiyin to die because it was the only way he could escape the torment of the past 3 years with the Hong family. But this mindset of his began to shift with the arrival of a new rival. On this day, Haiyin attended a business event for the renowned brand Hersina, where she unexpectedly ran into Yoon Eun-sun, a man who had once pursued her. Now a former Wall Street analyst and mergers and acquisitions expert, Eun-sun had returned to Korea as a famous investor. He was also the driving force behind Hersina's entry into the Korean market. However, one thing hadn't changed. Eun-sun still had feelings for Haiyin. After some brief pleasantries, Haiyin got straight to the point, telling Eun-sun that she was competing with another department store to secure Hersina's presence and hoped he could help her. Eun-sun immediately agreed to assist, knowing that Hersina's representatives placed great importance on family relationships. Haiyin sent a text to Hyun-woo, asking him to join the event. When Hyun-woo arrived, Eun-sun noticed him right away, and a hint of jealousy flickered across his face. Later, Eun-sun approached Hyun-woo and deliberately mentioned that he had once had feelings for Haiyin. When Hyun-woo appeared unfazed by this, Eun-sun couldn't help but feel awkward. Afterward, Hyun-woo went to the restroom. When he returned, he saw Haiyin and Eun-sun engaged in a lively conversation. A strange, unnameable feeling stirred within him. It wasn't until the Hong family held a hunting event that Hyun-woo realized he was feeling jealous. According to the planned route, Hyun-woo and Haiyin were supposed to be together. However, Eun-sun appeared along their path, clearly there for Haiyin. Irritated by Eun-sun's presence, Hyun-woo couldn't hide his animosity. His demeanor was openly hostile, and he even fired his gun to scare away the game, sparking a rivalry between the two men. Meanwhile, Haiyin was preparing to shoot a rabbit when she suddenly felt unwell. A haze of smoke appeared before her eyes. Initially, she thought it was a hallucination and kept reminding herself that it wasn't real. But then, she heard the unmistakable sound of a wild boar. Moments later, the boar charged straight at Haiyin. Confused and unable to distinguish between reality and illusion, she closed her eyes and stood frozen in place. In that critical moment, Hyun-woo appeared and shot the boar, bringing it down before it could reach Haiyin. The sound of the gunshot jolted Haiyin back to reality.
괜찮아?
After this harrowing experience, the tension between Haiyin and Hyun-woo began to ease. That evening, they shared a room, which further softened their feelings toward each other. Both started to see their relationship in a new light. After that day, whenever Haiyin saw Hyun-woo at work, her heart would start to race, and she couldn't help but find him increasingly attractive. The more she looked at him, the more she felt an overwhelming urge to hug him. Just as their relationship was beginning to improve, it nearly took a turn for the worse due to Hyun-woo's brother and sister. After Hyun-woo mentioned his plans for divorce during a visit home, his siblings became concerned that the divorce might negatively impact the family business. They decided to visit Haiyin to try to smooth things over on Hyun-woo's behalf. However, when they arrived at the department store, they were stopped by the receptionist because they didn't have an appointment. Even when Hyun-woo's sister showed a wedding photo and explained their relationship to Haiyin, the receptionist insisted that they needed an appointment to meet with her. As they were arguing with the receptionist, Haiyin happened to walk by and recognized them. Afterward, they sat down to talk with her, but Hyun-woo's sister, unsure of how to bring up the subject, ended up speaking in circles, offering many examples and explanations that confused Haiyin. Before they could clarify their intentions, Haiyin had to leave for another engagement. The brief and unclear conversation left Hyun-woo's sister feeling that she hadn't properly conveyed their message, so she decided to send Haiyin a text message to explain. Just as she sent the message, Hyun-woo called, informing her that he and Haiyin had reconciled and that the divorce was off the table. Realizing that the message might now cause unnecessary confusion, his sister panicked, but it was too late to retract the message. Understanding the potential consequences, Hyun-woo quickly tried to reach Haiyin to prevent her from reading the text. However, her phone kept going to voicemail. Unbeknownst to him, Haiyin was with Eun-sung at the time. When Hyun-woo's call came in, Eun-sung turned off Haeyin's phone. Haiyin, who had stepped into the restroom, was unaware that Eun-sung had tampered with her phone. Eun-sung's interference meant that Haiyin didn't immediately see the text message from Hyun-woo's sister, a fortunate delay, as by the time Haiyin finally returned home and turned her phone back on, she was already drunk. Seeing her unlock her phone, Hyun-woo's heart raced with anxiety. He quickly lunged to grab the phone from Haeyin's hand, causing it to fall to the floor. But instead of reacting with anger or suspicion, the drunken Haiyin found herself drawn to Hyun-woo's handsome face and impulsively kissed him. This unexpected kiss shifted the dynamic between them, turning what had been a fractured relationship into something more intimate and tender. It was their first kiss since their relationship had grown distant after the miscarriage 3 years earlier.